10 seconds can change how you see your entire life. 10 seconds is all it took for me to understand that the people I had built everything for no longer saw me as one of them. It was Christmas Day, and I was standing in a dining room that looked like it belonged in a magazine. High ceilings, perfect lighting, a tree so carefully decorated it didn't feel touched by human hands. Gold and white everywhere. Crystal glasses, linen napkins folded like artwork. And there I was, holding a tray of wine glasses, wearing a badge someone else had clipped onto my sweater. Housekeeper. My name is Victoria Harper. I was 70 years old that Christmas. I had been married for over 4 decades. I had raised 2 children. I had helped build a business from nothing but borrowed money and stubborn hope. And yet, in that room, I was not given a chair. My son stood at the table. My husband sat beside him. My daughter-in-law smiled as if she'd just pulled off something clever. There were 10 place settings, 9 chairs. I was not one of them. The badge had been Jane's idea. She said it brightly, loudly, as if she were announcing a party game. Something about not wanting the caterers to get confused. Something about keeping family separate from the help. People laughed. Not everyone, but enough. Laughter does something strange when it's aimed at you. It doesn't explode, it sinks. It settles somewhere deep and quiet, where you feel it later when the room goes still. I didn't say anything. I didn't protest. After 70 years, you learn how to keep your hands steady even when something inside you cracks. I looked at my son, Caleb. He didn't look back. He was busy playing host, carving meat, smiling for people who mattered more than I did in that moment. "Food's for family," he said when he finally noticed my face. Not cruelly, worse than that, casually. My husband, Mark, adjusted his tie and stared at his plate. Silence can be louder than shouting. I set the tray down. I touched the wedding ring on my finger, the one I'd worn so long it had shaped my skin around it. A small diamond, a thin band, bought decades ago when we were young and broke and believed that effort was always rewarded. I slipped it off. No one noticed at first. They were too busy laughing at a story Jane's father was telling, too busy enjoying a home I had paid for, too busy sitting in chairs that existed because I had worked for them. That was when I understood something I had been avoiding for years. This wasn't about a badge. It was about erasure. I stepped forward, into the empty space beside my son's chair, the place where I should have been sitting. I placed the ring on the white tablecloth, directly in front of his plate. The sound was small, metal against china, but it cut through the room like a blade. Forks paused, glasses stopped mid-air, conversations collapsed into silence. My son looked up, confused. "Mom, what are you doing?" I looked at him. At the boy I carried while balancing inventory sheets, at the teenager who once said he'd take over the family business someday, at the man who had just let me be reduced to staff. Then I looked at my husband, Mark. He finally met my eyes. Fear flickered there. Too late. I spoke calmly, quietly, without shaking. "You just lost everything." Jane laughed, sharp and nervous. She tried to smooth it over, called it a joke, said I was being dramatic, said I was obviously a part of the family. "Am I?" I asked. No one answered. I unclipped the badge from my sweater and placed it beside the ring. "I won't be staying for dinner. Merry Christmas." And I walked out. No one followed. Not my son, not my husband, not a single person who had benefited from my labor, my money, or my silence. The door closed behind me with a final, heavy sound. Outside, Christmas lights glowed on perfect houses. I walked to my old car, unlocked it, and sat there for a moment with my hands on the wheel. My phone buzzed. I didn't answer. As I drove away, I looked in the mirror and saw them still sitting there, still confused, still unaware of what those 4 words truly meant. For the first time in years, I felt something unexpected. Relief. The cold hit my face the moment I stepped outside, sharp and clean, like it was trying to wake me up. Behind me, the house glowed with warm light. Inside, Christmas dinner continued without me. Laughter would return soon enough. Someone would refill wine glasses. Someone would make a joke about how dramatic I was being. They always did. I walked to my car slowly, every step heavy but certain. My Buick looked small between luxury SUVs, like it didn't belong there. In a way, neither did I. I sat behind the wheel, keys resting in my palm, breathing in silence for the first time that day. My phone lit up. Caleb. I watched it buzz until the screen went dark. Then I started the engine and drove away. As I passed through the gated entrance, it opened automatically. No one stopped me. No one asked questions. The gate closed behind me with a mechanical hum that felt final. Outside that neighborhood, the world looked different. Smaller houses, regular cars, inflatable snowmen leaning sideways in yards, colored lights blinking instead of glowing perfectly. I felt something loosen in my chest. I didn't know where I was going, I just drove. After 20 minutes, I slowed near a neighborhood I hadn't seen in years. Narrow streets, modest homes. This was where Mark and I had started, where we'd been young and hopeful and terrified all at once. I pulled over. Across the street, a family was arriving home. A young couple unloading kids from a minivan, an older couple waiting on the porch. The grandmother opened her arms and the children ran straight into them. No hesitation, no confusion about who belonged. The door closed behind them. Warm light filled the windows. I watched longer than I should have. Then I drove on. Eventually, a motel sign appeared ahead, red letters glowing tiredly against the dark, the kind of place that charged by the night and didn't care who you were or why you were there. I pulled in. The woman at the desk slid me a key without looking up. I paid cash. The smell like old carpet and cleaning solution. 2 mismatched beds, a rattling bathroom fan, a TV bolted to the dresser. I sat down on the edge of the bed, coat still on. My phone buzzed again. 15 missed calls, messages stacked one on top of another. Caleb, Mark, Jane, my daughter Rebecca. I turned the phone off completely and set it face down. The room was quiet. Too quiet. Outside, cars passed on the highway. Somewhere down the hall, a television played too loudly. Inside, it was just me and my thoughts. They came fast. The badge, Jane's smile, the way people laughed. But when I let my mind wander further back, I realized something worse. This hadn't started that night. It had been happening slowly, quietly, for years. Jane handing me lists of things to do before gatherings, Caleb calling me Mom only when he needed something, Mark nodding along to decisions that weren't mine anymore. I thought about the business, the store Mark and I had built together, the papers I'd found in his dresser weeks earlier, giving Caleb authority without my knowledge. I thought about the house, the one I'd bought, the one where I no longer had a chair at the table. How long had I been invisible in my own life? Near midnight, I lay back on the bed and stared at the ceiling. Tomorrow, I told myself, I'd figure things out. But one thing was already clear. I wasn't going back to how things were. I woke up stiff and disoriented, light creeping through curtains that didn't quite meet. For a few seconds, I didn't know where I was. Then it came rushing back. The badge, the ring, the walkout. I left my phone off completely and splashed cold water on my face. In the mirror, I saw a woman with gray hair, tired eyes, and lines that told the truth about a lifetime of work. 70 years old, still standing. I thought about where I came from. A small town near Waco, one diner, one grocery store, parents who stretched $1 until it begged for mercy. My mother worked tables until her knees gave out. My father drove delivery routes and came home when he could. They taught me dignity wasn't about money. It was about how you lived and whether you kept your word. I met Mark when I was 23. married young, no honeymoon, a drafty duplex over his brother's garage. We saved, we sacrificed, we built Harper's Home Supply with borrowed money and stubborn belief. I painted the sign myself. For decades, I handled the books, the suppliers, the negotiations, the nights we wondered if we'd make payroll. I raised our children behind the counter, and somewhere along the way, people forgot that. Or worse, they remembered and decided it no longer mattered. Sitting on that motel bed, I understood something I should have learned years earlier. It doesn't matter how much you build if the people you build it for don't respect the builder. By the time the sun was fully up, my decision was already forming. They thought I was tired. They thought I was trapped. They were wrong. I didn't confront anyone right away. That's the thing people misunderstand about moments like this. They expect shouting, drama, ultimatums delivered in raised voices. But clarity doesn't arrive that way. Clarity arrives quietly. It arrived for me on a Saturday morning while Mark was out golfing with Jane's father. I was folding laundry in the guest suite, the one they called our space, as if generosity erased ownership. Mark's dresser drawer wouldn't close properly. It snagged on something inside. I opened it to fix the problem and saw a manila envelope tucked beneath his socks. I almost shut the drawer again. Almost. But instinct, the same one that had kept our business alive through bad years, told me not to. Inside were legal documents, partnership agreements, transfers of authority, pages I recognized instantly because I'd signed thousands like them over my lifetime. Caleb's name appeared again and again. Managing authority, decision-making power, access to accounts. Mark's signature was at the bottom. Mine was nowhere. I sat on the edge of the bed, papers in my lap, feeling something inside me finally break open. Not explode. Open. This wasn't carelessness. This was deliberate. Mark came home hours later, cheerful from golf, and stopped short when he saw the envelope in my hand. "It's just paperwork," he said. That's when I realized something terrifying. He truly believed that. He thought I'd always stay, always smooth things over, always accept being sidelined for the sake of family. That night, we argued, quietly, bitterly. He said he was giving Caleb a chance. I said he was erasing me. He didn't understand the difference. After that, the house grew careful, polite, tense. Jane watched me differently. Caleb avoided me. Mark acted as though nothing had changed. But everything had. 3 weeks later, I overheard Jane on the phone. I wasn't trying to listen. I was folding sheets near the upstairs laundry room when her voice drifted out of the bedroom, sharper than usual, honest. "She's useful," Jane said. "Don't get me wrong, the free childcare is amazing. She does everything without being asked." Pause. But useful isn't the same as lovable. I stood there, sheet clenched in my hands, listening as she laid out the plan. Luxury retirement communities, present it as a gift. Estate planning, simplifying things. Once I was settled, she said, everything would be easier. The house would be theirs, the business would be theirs, and I would be somewhere out of sight. "She won't really have a choice," Jane said lightly. "It's not like she can afford to go anywhere on her own." That was the moment. Not when she insulted me, not when she dismissed me, but when she assumed I was powerless. I didn't cry. I didn't confront her. I went back to the guest suite, opened the closet, and pulled out the old accordion file I'd kept hidden for decades. Inside were deeds, original business registrations, loan documents, insurance policies, proof. Proof of what I owned, proof of what I had built. I photographed everything, slowly, carefully. Then I opened my laptop and searched for one name, Robert Mitchell, our lawyer for over 20 years. The next morning, while Caleb and Jane took the baby out and Mark went to the store, I drove across Fort Worth and sat in Robert's office. He listened, didn't interrupt, didn't minimize. When I finished, he leaned back and said, "Legally, you have far more power than they think. The house? Mine, solely. The business? Equal partners on paper, but I was the operator, the backbone, the history." He asked what I wanted. I didn't hesitate. I want control of what's mine. So we acted. A trust, in my name, assets protected, authority locked down. My share of the business placed beyond their reach. Plans drafted to sell my portion to the employees who had actually earned it. The house prepared for listing. Accounts transferred. All of it legal, quiet, irreversible. When I left his office that evening, the sun was setting, and my phone buzzed with messages from Jane. "Pick up silver polish. Grab coffee. What time will you be home?" I didn't reply. That night, I ate alone at a diner near the highway, watched traffic pass, felt calm for the first time in years. The revenge wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It was already done. Christmas Day arrived cold and bright. I woke up in the guest suite of a house that was legally mine and felt calm in a way I hadn't felt in years. The paperwork was done. The trust was established. The house would be listed within weeks. The business would be sold to people who had actually earned it. All that remained was the performance. Upstairs, I could hear Jane directing caterers, her voice sharp and efficient. Mark had already left to pick up her parents. Caleb was running errands, playing host in a home he believed would someday be his. I walked through the main floor slowly. Everything was perfect. Too perfect. White and gold decorations, matching ornaments, furniture chosen to photograph well. I searched for something of mine, anything that suggested I lived there. There was nothing. I had been erased long before I walked out. Guests arrived. Laughter filled the rooms. Jane moved through the house like a conductor, arranging people, adjusting details. When she saw me, she smiled and told me to stay in the kitchen while family photos were taken. I watched from the doorway as they posed in front of the tree. No one noticed I wasn't there. The dining table was set for 20. Crystal glasses, gold-trimmed china, place cards written in elegant script. Then, Jane brought out the badge. Housekeeper. She clipped it onto my sweater with a smile and a joke about not confusing the help with the family. People laughed. Mark stared at his plate. Caleb smirked. I accepted the badge without a word. I picked up the tray of glasses. I walked to the buffet. I set it down. Then, I stepped into the empty space where my chair should have been. I removed my wedding ring and placed it in front of my son's plate. "You just lost everything," I said. Silence fell like a curtain. I unclipped the badge and left it beside the ring. "I won't be staying for dinner. Merry Christmas." And I walked out. This time, I knew exactly what those words meant. The next morning, I went to the original store, the one Mark and I had opened decades earlier. The smell of sawdust and paint greeted me like an old friend. Luis walked in, surprised to see me. "Plans changed," I told him. An hour later, Mark stormed in, furious. He accused me of embarrassment, overreacting, ruining everything over a joke. I slid the documents across the desk. The trust, the sale, the house listing. His anger drained into panic. "You can't do this," he said. I already did. I told him he could choose, me or the life he'd been protecting at my expense. He didn't choose. The store sale finalized 2 weeks later. Luis and Tina cried when they signed the papers. They promised to take care of it. Caleb confronted me in the parking lot, furious that I hadn't given him the business. I said, "You wanted the reward without the work. That's not how this works." Jane screamed over the phone when she learned the house was being sold. "That's our home," she said. "It was mine," I replied. "You were living in it." They moved out. I moved on. By the end of January, I was living in a small coastal house, 2 bedrooms, peeling paint, floors that creaked. It was imperfect. It was mine. A year later, on Christmas morning, I set a table with mismatched chairs and plates that didn't coordinate. Neighbors arrived with casseroles. My daughter came with her kids. Laughter filled the space. No badges, no performances, no missing chairs. After dinner, I stood by a small shelf near the door. Framed there was the badge Jane had given me, Housekeeper. Not as a symbol of shame, but as proof of the day I stopped accepting less than I deserved. They tried to give me a label instead of a seat. They forgot I built the floor they were standing on. If you've ever felt invisible in your own life, hear this clearly. You are not the help unless you choose to be. And when someone removes your chair, you are allowed to stand up, walk away, and build a better table. I belong to myself now, and that is the greatest inheritance I ever claimed.